Absolutely. That's one of the things I get a lot of calls for, especially this time of year. And it's a huge benefit again. And there's many different ways of insulating crawl spaces. Two schools of thought again. There's spraying the floor joists and insulating the floor, and then we'll also take care of those pipes in that same situation. Or we put a mat down in the crawl space, seal that mat to the foundation wall, and go on up to the floor and seal that rim joist, and then we basically have a conditioned crawl space, and you're never going to see those frozen pipes again.
Well, I have kind of a struggle with the whole insulate the pipe to keep it from freezing concept in the first place. Mm-hmm. Because you can take 2 cans of pop and put them out in your front yard today. Mm-hmm. And take one of those cans of pop and wrap it in the best blanket and then put a winter coat on top of that. That can of pop is still going to freeze.
Yep. There's longer, right?
There's no heat source.
Exactly.
There's no heat source. If you take a cold water line that is feeding your outside hydrant and it's in a crawl space that's too cold to start with, and you go to all the work and time and trouble of putting insulation on that water pipe to keep it from freezing, all you have done is keep it from any heat gain that pipe may receive from ground or from heat through the floor.
Exactly.
So you're basically precluding heat from getting to that pipe, and you're not allowing it to avoid the freezing situation.
And what we do on those pipes is we isolate the extremes from the crawl space to those pipes.
Exactly. By doing that exterior, you're completely closing that in. And you said you start from where the dirt and the concrete's exposed coming out of the dirt. And you said you put a matting on that. Tell me more about that.
We can go with a mat across the entire all the dirt in a crawl space.
Okay.
Basically cover that, put an impermeable barrier there.
Okay.
And then that will go up to the concrete or the stone or whatever the foundation wall is made of.
Sure.
And then we insulate by spraying this. Basically, spray foam is also kind of like a glue. So when we spray it, we'll actually glue that mat to the foundation wall and go on up. That way we're giving a water moisture barrier on the ground and, again, creating a very controllable situation.
You've probably been in enough crawl spaces that this is going to make you go, ooh. But what about the crawl spaces that are really, really not crawl spaces? They're more, what's the word I'm looking for here?
Nightmares.
6-inch spaces, is that the right way to put it? You have to have your arms above your head and kind of shimmy back there to get into them. Mm-hmm. When they're very difficult access-wise, do you have extensions that you can use for this, or do you have to physically get clear back to that exterior wall?
Unfortunately, it's me that has to get there and spray the length of my arm, basically, and add about 1.5 feet.
Okay. So you do need very close access.
Yeah.
What about cleanup? As far as overspray, those kinds of things. What kind of preparations required and cleanup after you're done is required in a situation like that?
In the crawl spaces, overspray generally isn't too much of a problem. We're dealing with very little overspray.
Sure.
And, it's just kind of usually just mixes in with dirt or whatnot. But if it's a concrete situation, we clean it up, scrape it up, and vacuum it out.
What about an attic? Would you want to get all of the storage boxes and everything that someone had stored in the attic? Would you want to get those out of there, or do you just cover them with Visqueen?
We generally just cover everything with Visqueen.
Okay.
Occasionally I've seen some very nice family stuff that is stored up there, and we'll get that out of the attic just to avoid any potential overspray.
Sure. What about commercial applications? We've talked a lot about residential. Mm-hmm. You can completely cover residential applications all throughout Kansas. What do you do for commercial?
Commercial flat roof systems, now this is an entirely different application with spray foam. We spray on the outside of the building, spray their roof, and then we have to use an acrylic or a silicone or some type of a coating over that to protect from UV degradation. But then we basically create a monolithic roofing system that really should last as long as the building with very, very little maintenance.
Fantastic. Any final thoughts?
Oh, I think we've covered it.
785-393-5477. I would encourage you to call Russ Faust. Sunflower spray foam, really, absolutely, sounds like a phenomenal product. Yes. And I am looking forward to being a live example of how awesome it is in my garage if I ever find a way to get all that stuff out of there.
Yeah.
But new construction, it would just be hands down the absolute best way to go.
Got to figure out a way to get it in there.
You got to figure out how to get it there. I appreciate you being on, Russ. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you for listening to Around Your Kansas Home. On behalf of our board operator, Jake Laban, the show's executive producer, Tim Coling, I am Charlie Campbell. Stay warm, and I hope all of your remodeling projects are successful ones. Take care. We'll see you next Saturday.